Okay, so step one, duplicate the background. You can either right click and say duplicate layer, or you can drag it to the new layer button. And when you drag a layer to that new layer button beside the garbage can, that will actually give you a duplicate layer. The only reason we're doing that is so that if we mess up, we can get our background back really easily without having to reopen it and start right over. So now we want to take the girl and we want to extract her off of that white background. There's a variety of methods that you can do it. I'm just going to shut off my background so that you can see it actually working here, that I'm on my background copy layer. I'm going to use that new select object tool. If I can get it to come up. Oh, it's inside this one. Object selection tool. So I'm going to grab my select subject right there, and I'm going to see how good of a job it does. And it's going to do a pretty decent job. The only thing that you're going to notice if I zoom into it is that it knew that her little strand of hair here is part of it. And so because we probably don't want that little piece sticking out of her arm when we go to take and silhouette her shape, I'm going to use my Lasso tool. Remember that an Alt key is a subtraction and holding down Shift is an addition. So I want to subtract out those little pixels that are there. So I would hold my Alt key down and I would say, I don't want those. And now it's not part of the selection anymore. Go all the way around her body and just make sure that it's done a good job. You're going to find that down at her feet here, it's messed up again. Okay. So you can see how on this one shoe, it has taken too much of the shoe. So again, I'm going to Alt out of that, hold down my Alt key. It turns into a minus sign. And I'm very carefully just going to come down the edge here of her shoe and say, I don't want those. If you go too far, just remember you can hold your Shift key and you can add those pixels back in by looping around them. So you want to get the shape of it. What you'll also notice is probably up here around her hand as I go up. So I'm just scanning it. You can see that her hand actually grabbed a little bit. There was pink background in there, so it was a messy picture to begin with. So you could just make sure that you get more of a better, I don't know, shape of a defined thumb and just Alt that, and probably here a little bit around her fingers as well, so that we don't have those that are in there. This bow, even though it's part of her dress, that bow, because it's sticking out, when we silhouette it, it's probably going to, it's going to look like a little jut out. You could get rid of it now, or you could just tweak those things afterwards. So you're trying to get a really decent selection. That's not arm hair. That's her hair from in behind, just in case you're wondering. Once you've got her selected well, and you've got that definition of those marching ants all the way around it, what you want to do then is you want to put her on her own layer. So the shortcut is Control-J, which stands for jump. So that's in place of going copy and then paste. So Control-J for jump, puts her on her own layer. If I shut off that background copy now, you'll notice that it is on a transparent background. Okay. I want to take and fill the shape of her now, that entire shape. So I'm going to do that on a blank layer. So I'm going to create a blank layer above her by hitting my new layer button. I'm on my blank layer. I'm going to grab the shape of her by holding my Control key and clicking on that little icon of the layer that she's actually on. So not the layer itself, but the little square icon. So holding Control, grab the shape of her. You can now see the marching ants that are around her again. Making sure you're still on that blank layer, I'm going to fill it. So on black, get a paint bucket and fill it. Now I'm going to shut that layer off temporarily. I'm going to go back to the layer where she is on, and now I'm going to grab just her dress. So a few variety of ways you could do it. You could do a quick selection. So in the quick selection tool, I can drag over top of her dress, and I can try and grab her dress part of it. Take my brush down really small so that I can get into this area to get her dress. But if you go into her neck like I just did, you can see how it grabs the neck part of it. So that's one method you can use. The other method that you could use, I'll just deselect, is I could use my magic wand tool to get the shades of red. Magic wand, remember, is done through a tolerance. So 50 means 50 different shades of red on whatever pixel I click on. Contiguous means that those shades of red have to touch, which is a good thing because We don't want the shades of red that might be in her eyes, her eyebrows, her hair, etc. So you just click with the magic wand. Notice how it grabbed more of those darker shades because I clicked on dark. I want to add in more. So again, I can hold shift to add more pixels in. Shift, click on this. Shift, click on that. You see it's grabbing more of her dress. Click on this. Click on that. I'm getting more and more and more of her dress, but it's starting to go badly in the sense that it's grabbing those shades out of her hair. So again, I could use my lasso to refine this. I could hold my Alt key down and say, I don't want all those pixels that are there. And I don't want these pixels that are around the edge here. And if I zoom in on that, whether you use the quick select or whether you use magic wand, you're still going to have some refining to do on it, where again, you're going to have to come in, get a nice slope of the dress. Try not to have any white. If you do, it's going to be fixable later anyway. Do watch up in this area where you want to have a good selection coming around where you're using your shift to add these red pixels into her dress, and you're using your Alt key to get rid of the pixels that you don't want outside of her dress. So let's say here that I've got a good selection going on. Once again, I'm going to jump that to its own layer by saying Control J. This is now my dress layer. So you can see if I shut all of them off, I just have the dress. Put the dress on top of the silhouette layer, turn my silhouette back on, and there we have it. So far, so good. Now we get to refine it. So now is where you're going to start zooming in and you're going to look and say, okay, you know what? I did a really bad job around this dress part here. You can see where it kind of was picking up some white edges around it. Here on the side of the dress, I've got white edges. You'll notice down here, there's white edges on the dress. And so what I want to do is I want to just mask those out. So on the dress layer, add a mask and start refining it. So I would really zoom in on those areas so I can get rid of those red pixels. The mask is white. I'm going to grab a black brush, grab a hard brush, probably just a little teeny tiny size brush, 1 or 2 pixels in size. And you come in there and you just mask that out. If you go too far in, remember you just reverse your color and you can just paint that back because a mask is forgivable so that you can just fix it. So just go all the way around the mask. I'm going to use a little bit bigger brush so I can just do this a little bit faster and you can see me work. And so you would just refine this all the way around so that you would get rid of your white edges. You can do the same thing underneath the dress down at the hemline where you've got on her legs there. You want to just hide that piece of the dress. Now remember that this is the hemline, so it's not going to matter if you go a little bit too far because nobody's going to really know what the hem of the dress looks like anyway. If you've got black line around the edges, then you can also mask your black layer in order to fix pieces of it. 2 final steps once you've got that piece done. We're going to add a background layer that is a complement of color to it. So you could go with a monochromatic theme and use a lighter red. You could do an analogous theme and start pushing into those pink or orange tones for it. You could also do a complementary theme where you're using green that is opposite on the color wheel. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to place that layer underneath my black silhouette. I'm going to go and grab a color. And for me, I'm going to use complementary. So I'm going to grab green. Don't pick bright green. It'll make it look like it's blinking. But a nice light tone of green will certainly work nicely with the red. Grab my paint bucket, fill it in. I've got my green. Last step, we need to grab some text and add a price on here. You can just put 99 bucks for your price. I'm going to use a red that's out of her dress to make it, again, complement it. Pick whatever font you want to. If you pick a font that's got some weight to it, I don't know which one I'll use. I'll use that one. I can make it a little bit bigger. Move it into place. Now you can add in some effects to that. And so I want to see at least one effect when you do it. Your effects panel is down here. It's this FX. So I'm sitting on my text layer. I'm going to add an effect to it. So effect that you might want to use is stroke. Stroke will give it an outside edge to it. So maybe I would use a color of black. Make sure that your stroke is going on the outside, and you can see how when I make that bigger, how it takes that stroke. So again, just a few pixels to give it a stroke. And another thing that really jazzes up text very quickly is to go to this Bevel and Emboss, and you add a bevel to it. You can change your depth of it and so on and so forth, but you can see instantly how it just makes it look like it's in 3D now and it's popping out at you. So that is a very quick demo on how you'll do this mannequin assignment.